Panicking over the president's latest effort to create a rational foreign policy, but the Ukraine impeachment effort trudges forward. You've heard endlessly on cable news, it's unprecedented that the president would seek political gain from a conversation with the foreign leader. Well, turns out it's happened before. Back in 2000, we can report, President Bill Clinton had a conversation with Tony Blair of the UK and asked him directly to intercede in a dispute between British Airways and two American carriers. The president, at the time, was much more direct than President Trump was in his conversation with the Ukrainian leader. This is Bill Clinton back then, I'm quoting, "In a political season, it would be big over here to get this open sore resolved. If you could have somebody take a look at it," he asked. Tony Blair responded that he would. Now, is this a big deal? Not really. Is it nakedly political? Is it an effort to use a foreign country to influence the outcome of an election in a presidential year? Well, yes, it is, obviously. Incidentally, it didn't take long for us to find that transcript. We only had to dig through old Clinton transcripts for about 15 minutes. They're all kept. They're all online, by the way. There are probably a lot more examples, and if we find them, we'll bring them to you. But the point is, anyone commenting on this, anyone staring at the screen, and there are countless people who fit this description, and telling you, this has never happened before, it's outrageous. None of them took the time to check. Because whenever they're telling you that something is without precedent, you can be certain it happens every day here. Well, Washington is, of course, totally addicted to impeachment over the Ukraine scandal. On MSNBC, a contributor spun a wild fantasy where, in fact, in the end, Nancy Pelosi could become president. Watch this.
You could impeach Pence first. The problem is that Donald Trump then has to name his replacement. But I think that maybe a deal could be struck where he was told, if you don't make a replacement, then Nancy Pelosi does become president. And so you are going to be impeached and convicted. You need to make this replacement so that the proper party remains in power.
Who are these people? I mean, look, just a plea to TV bookers. Before you put someone on the air, people are watching this. You know, people on treadmills across the country are listening and saying, what is that person saying? Try to make sure that the person you have on the screen knows what he or she is talking about, is kind of credible, and then sane. How about that as a baseline requirement? This is fantasy, as you know. It's outrunning reality. In fact, the entire Ukraine saga is starting to resemble another fake scandal from a year ago, the character assassination of Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Peter Van Buren is a former State Department official and a whistleblower. He joins us tonight. So, Peter, we've been at this for a little over 2 weeks now, I think, the Ukraine story. I don't think of you as especially partisan. What's your assessment? Do we know more now than we did 2 weeks ago and enough to justify impeachment? Are you starting to think this is a real story or no?
No, it's not. I mean, essentially, the first complaint surfaced the phone call. The full transcript is available online. Anyone can read it, and it's clearly not crazy or frightening. It clearly doesn't represent any kind of demand for political quid pro quo or anything along those lines. What we've seen, however, is some very clever teeing up of information and kind of a three-way pitch and toss between the Democrats, the media, and what's going on with this so-called whistleblower. Now, there's a second whistleblower that we're led to believe somehow is adding to the narrative, but I think what is emerging is that the second whistleblower is actually the source for the first whistleblower, which means it's all the same thing. Now, this is different than in the Kavanaugh case where they sent Michael Avenatti out to find additional victims wherever he could. In this case, there's other lawyers who have taken time off from chasing ambulances to get on Twitter and play up their second whistleblower. But in fact, he's simply the source for the first whistleblower. The CIA, this is an old trick. It's called a feedback loop. And essentially what you do is you set up one of your sources to back up another source and you make it appear that your initial source is more credible by feeding information into the loop. That's what seems to be going on here. They're repurposing a witness as a second whistleblower.
Right. It does have the hallmark of that. Thank you for pointing. I was trying to think as I'm watching this, since we have the transcript, of course, so all of this is kind of superfluous.
It's all moot, yeah.
Right, exactly. But I'm watching this, I'm thinking, what does this remind me of? And that's exactly right. It is a feedback loop. Peter, thanks so much.
We saw that. Thank you.
Exactly.